Hello, everyone. Welcome to Crick Punch with Fussy. We are done with the longest format, and in comes the shortest format, and probably the most important one this year with the T20 World Cup in sight. Two heavyweight teams are going head to head in a 5-match T20 series, and we have a very special guest here from a very cool podcast called by the Barest of Margins. Prashanth, thank you so much for doing this. Welcome to Crick Punch with Fussy.
Thank you so much, Fasi. Really looking forward to the chat. Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
Guys, I've dropped a link in the description for the podcast. You guys should definitely check it out if you're a cricket fan, as they dwell deep into the matches and put forth amazing views on the ongoing matches. So, Prashant, before we start with the England series, right? So the words by the barest of margins still make me weak to my bones, thinking about that epic match. So how did you guys come up with this name, and how did you start this podcast?
Okay, I think the podcast has been inactive for quite some time now. We had one very long time back. So I think the name came in during the lockdown. We started a group through Twitter. We met some people and we started doing auctions and drafts regularly, just for the fun of it. During lockdown, everyone was pretty bored and we had a lot of time on our hands at the start of the lockdown. So we started it that way. Then slowly everyone's like, since we started discussing, the idea revolved that we start a podcast together. So then someone chipped in with the name, and then that's how they developed. And what an iconic match to remember, of probably one of the greatest I've ever seen.
Same here. Those words by Ian Smith, they're still reverberating in our minds, and they probably will for a long time to come. So so let's dive right into the series, right? It's a heavyweight championship with two of the best white ball teams going head to head. So my first question to you would be how important is this series in the context of the T20 World Cup coming up this year?
It is massive. I think in terms of quality, in terms of a quality in a bilateral T20I series, this will be right up there, because you don't usually get sides of such high caliber and going against each other in a bilateral T20 series. Most of the teams mostly rest people for the T20I leg of the series, usually after the tests or the one days. They probably do that. But since it's a World Cup year, it's nice to see both the sides almost going at full strength against each other. And England, especially with Morgan, I think the rotation policy is set in a way that it looks at the Ashes and World T20 as the pinnacle of this year. So in that way, I think in terms of quality, this series is going to be very exciting, because you have, I think, unmatchable in terms of quality. Probably West Indies at full strength will be matching to these two sides' quality. And going into the World T20, these two sides are big favorites. It's out there for everyone to see. So in that way, I think for both sides, they won't get a better preparation than this. And I think for England as well, they get to practice in India, where the World T20 is going to happen. So that makes it even more interesting, because you're practicing in conditions that's going to be put out later in the year. So in that way, it's a massive.
Right. It's interesting, and I'm happy that you brought the point up that the way the rotation policy has been set up for England, that they're mainly focusing on the World Cup and the Ashes. Because if you look at the Test team, right, it was pretty obvious that they were targeting the Ashes and the World Cup, because they rested quite a few important players from the Test team. Right. So even with the tight schedules and the bubble life, so the both teams have opted for the full strength squad, and England have cleared the whole IPL schedule for the national team, so that their players play in IPL, right? So how important is this IPL? How big a factor is it for the players and the national team?
So firstly, on the rotation, I think it's important. I think, as everyone mentions, the times are very difficult and it can get challenging at times, the bubble life. But I would like to have the best teams for the most important series. So for England, a tour of India is right up there. Even if they look at Ashes as a pinnacle, they should be probably considering a tour of India as big, probably as challenging as the Ashes for them. I know it's tough to get the best players out there consistently, but you wouldn't see England rotating as much as in an Ashes. So there comes the question: which do you prioritize? Have they prioritized the India tour enough to blame and look at the results in that way? It is challenging times, absolutely no doubt. But that's where I think Morgan has stepped in. I think he has demanded probably their best players to be available for the white ball series, because of what is there in this year, the World T20. So I think it's his requirement that he needs all players fresh for the World T20. That there comes the challenge with split captaincy again. You have to pay attention to both sides of the coin. So Root can't have his own way and Morgan can't have his. But in a World T20 year,
Yeah.
you probably tend to give more importance to that because that happens once in 2 years. And similarly for the Ashes,
Yeah.
they want players fresh as well. So it's a very interesting and a very tentative debate. You can't like
Hmm.
pin and you can't like stamp your authority and say no, they're wrong, no, they're right. You can't
Yeah.
tend to have both sides as well. So I understand that. But I would have preferred England play their full strength in a series like India in the recently concluded Test series, of course. But that's gone now. We're looking forward to the T20. And as you brought up the IPL, see, Morgan has
Yes.
been pretty vocal about the IPL. He's
Hmm.
told that a lot of players have improved considerably. So England look
Yeah.
at IPL as a big growing stage because a lot of players have come through the ranks and they play in situations as good as any. You come up against the best death
Yeah.
bowlers or probably the toughest situations. So there's no bigger learning than that. And the IPL again this year is happening in India. And with the
Yes.
T20, we are following up. You can't get a better exposure or better match practice, you would say. So England look at IPL very they rate it very highly, especially after Morgan took over that white ball side in
Yeah.
2015. They
Hmm.
have that period clear all the time because it's been his requirement of sorts to have their best players play in the IPL. So
Right.
IPL is going to be huge in terms of preparation of World T20. And in terms of rotation, I'm not quite sure. As I told before, you can't take a foot into
Yeah.
either side. Very minute line.
That kind of makes sense. So if we come to India, right? India are also in a great form in this format, particularly. They've won 6 out of the last 7 series, and one ended up in draw. So they've not lost the series in the last 7 series. So what do you think has been the contributing factor to the streak?
See, India have a lot of talented players. The talent pool is as good
Yeah.
as any. And in terms of people fighting for
Yeah.
spots, even if you look at it from the outside, despite India's results, we could get a lot more dominating than what we actually
Yeah.
feel. The teams can be so much
Yeah.
more better. In terms
Hmm.
of T20 alone, just if
Yeah.
we with the talent options available, we can dominate this format. We have such players who
Right.
can take the game away, but we still don't field our best 11s. There are a lot of debates around that, a lot of
Yeah.
positions. We have a lot of similar type of players in that middle order usually, but still we get our way around. I think largely due to our spinners that do a lot
Right.
of job. I think Chahal is outstanding. He's won a lot of games for India in this
Yes.
format, and the number of times he delivers in pressure situations for RCB as well as for India is just unbelievable because he's always put under the pump. And in IPL,
Yes.
he plays at RCB, which is at Chinnaswamy, which is like a deathbed for the bowlers. It
Nightmare for
can
the
get very
bowlers.
hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
and with the small boundaries as well. So you can see how much he's grown as a bowler. That has been one of our biggest strengths because when we tour abroad, you saw in the New Zealand series,
Hmm.
spinners during the middle overs had a lot of impact. They squeeze
Yes.
the game out in terms of run chases, or if you're bowling first, they take a lot of wickets. So that helps.
Yeah.
And predominantly, when we started off winning a lot of T20s, Kuldeep and Chahal used to be the pairing that did a lot of damage. Kuldeep has kind of fallen below in the
Yes.
ranks over the last 2 years of sorts.
Yeah.
And Jadeja has kind of come back into the mix massively. And in terms of his
Yes.
improved batting performances to the death and in the finishing stages, his batting has gone up against pace
Hmm.
pretty much a lot of notches above. So that makes him a very
Yes.
dangerous prospect. So this has been one of the reasons India have been successful, but we are a far way off being at our best because with the talent pool available and if we get our selection right, I don't think any team can stop us.
It's interesting that you bring up Kuldeep and Chahal, right? So yeah, I completely agree with that point that we mainly started winning from the point that we started including Kuldeep and Chahal in the team, and they kind of
Yeah.
squeezed the opposition, and opposition had a hard time picking them. So, but
Mhm.
ever since, but what has happened since the 2019 World Cup is that our tail has been exposed because it's a pretty long tail if Kuldeep Yadav plays in, right? So
Yeah.
that's the reason Jadeja came up in first place. Yes, Jadeja has improved a lot with his batting, but I don't see, it's my personal opinion that even though he's one of the best all-rounders right now going
Yeah.
around, but I don't
I agree.
see him a wicket taker in the white ball format,
Hmm. Agree,
right?
agree.
He's more of a like containing the runs kind of guy, but Kuldeep, on the other hand, is a wicket taker.
Yeah.
So going into a T20, which one do you prefer? Like someone who can hold one end and bat, or someone who can come up and who can't bat but can pick a lot of wickets?
See, If Kuldeep is at his best, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Kuldeep at this stage of his when if the wickets are gonna be low scoring, you don't want your
Hmm.
spinners going for a lot, and that
Yeah.
can make a lot of difference. So
Hmm.
it's like what I prefer, because with Kuldeep, with wrist spinners, you will get bad balls. It's hard for
Yes.
them to control, and
Yes.
that's where Chahal has done extremely well with that wicket taking option. He also gives that control more often than not.
Yes.
So that's the bar he set. So Kuldeep, it's going to be
Hmm.
hard to match that for him. Kuldeep did well for a long time. So now I don't know if it's his confidence things or teams have started to read him well. England are one side that picked Kuldeep very well. I think they're the one of
Yes.
the first sides that took him on after he did well during the T20s in England in 2018. If you see
Yes.
during T20s, he did well, but through the
Yes.
course of the series, as the ODIs happened, they started picking him better, and they absolutely got top of him. Even in the
Yes.
2018 World Cup match, they absolutely got on top of Kuldeep Yadav.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
England are one side that play him very well. Even during the Test series, he didn't make a big impact as a lot of people wanted Kuldeep to play. And England are
Right.
one side that have picked him well. So if I have to look at this stage of their careers, I would pick Jadeja
Hmm.
because of the
Right.
control, simply because we have wicket taking options, and you can't be leaking runs in the middle overs, because that's when India can squeeze the game out of the opposition.
Yeah.
So if Kuldeep
Hmm.
starts, I don't know how he develops, because in the IPL also his chances have come low. He's not getting as many chances as
Yes.
before. He's sitting in the
Yes.
sidelines, and Varun Chakravarti has started to come up massively through the ranks for KKR,
Yeah.
and DK quite likes what he brings
Yeah.
to the table, and rightly so. Varun is a mystery
Hmm.
bowler, and he's a little special as well. So I see what's
Hmm.
backing, but Kuldeep needs
Yeah.
game time if he has to prove and get back into the mix of things. As of now, Jadeja is higher.
Right. Going into this series, there is neither Jadeja nor Kuldeep in the team. And even Varun Chakravarti, I read somewhere that is not in the mix of the
Yeah.
things due to the fitness. Jaddu leaves a big hole, right? So currently Jaddu isn't playing. So who do you think fills that space? Like, is it Washington Sundar? We have Akshay Patel in the mix, or we have
Rahul Tewatia.
Rahul Tewatia? Yes. So who do you think fills that spot?
See, I think Jaddu bats number 7. It's a very
Hmm.
important position in a T20 innings.
Yeah.
You need a
Yeah.
batsman who could ideally hit versus pace, because that's what he'll be facing more of in that stage of the game. So Jaddu's pace game going up has improved massively. So that is why he's become such a force to reckon with over the last year or so. Even for CSK, his pace batting at the death was very impressive. I think his strike
Hmm.
rate was in the very high 150s or something. That's one thing you
Right.
wanted Jadeja to improve on, because in a
Right.
earlier stage of his career, he had a lot of you knew he had potential to take his batting
Yeah.
always has been rated highly, but
Yeah.
he always used to be a little bit more defensive, I would say. He had
Yes.
gears, but I think at this stage of career, he's found his best mojo. He's into that
Yeah.
stage where he's of such high value to any team in the world. He would add so much value.
Right.
So in this series, I'm not quite sure, because you'll have Hardik batting at 6, I would think. So
Yeah.
7 becomes Sundar, I would think. I don't know. I'm not quite sure.
Right.
Will they play the third spinner in Aksa, or will they go for a third seamer? That's a very tricky debate. If the pitches are starting to turn, you would like to have 3 spinners in Chahal,
Right.
Sundar, who bowls in the power play, and Aksa Patel.
Hmm.
I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure where Rahul Tewatia ranks. He had a very good season. He has shown his abilities with the bat. I'm not quite sure
Yeah.
how trustable he's with the ball at this stage of his career.
Hmm.
He has shown
Hmm.
glimpses, because a player of that dynamic brings a lot to the team. Rahul Tewatia at number
Yeah.
7 would bring a lot of dynamic to the team, but I'm not quite sure where the team management see him. Is he in line to make a debut? I'm not quite sure,
Right.
because when Bumrah comes back, I think if we play 3 seamers more often than not,
Yeah.
Natarajan, Bhuvaneshwar, and Deepak Chahar is the toss-up, because when Bhuvi is fit, he's a massive bonus to the
Right.
team.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it not only covers the new ball where he attacks with wicket, he at his best
Good
he
death
does
ball.
well at the death overs as well. So
Yeah.
Bumrah, Natarajan, and Bhuvaneshwar Kumar bowling at his best in the death covers a lot of facets, and that makes a very interesting Indian side. So in
Yeah.
this stage series with Bumrah not being there, I think they play
Hmm.
3 spinners in
Hmm.
Aksa. Aksa has gone up the ranks massively, I would think. And since he does the Jadeja role and the left arm spin option, and he's shown a
Right.
lot of improvement in the last IPL as well. He had good figures, and brought a lot of more variety into his bowling. It's not that one
Yeah.
dimension of bowling it flat and quick. Akshar started to give
Yeah.
more guile about his bowling. There's some very interesting and subtle changes of pace which make him
Yes.
a little more threatening. I think they might play with three spinners, with Hardik if bowling being the sixth bowling option.
That's an interesting take because personally, I don't think they will go with three spinners, right? Because that's the same thing they did in the previous T20 series against Australia. But yeah, definitely the surface is different from Australia, so it'll be quite interesting to see. So going into this series, what do you think are strengths and weaknesses of India? Like what do you think on paper, at least, you feel that India will be pretty confident about, and what are the areas that you feel India should improve going into the World Cup?
I think top order is a big strength for us because we have
Absolutely.
three world-class players. If I
Yeah.
don't see Shikhar Dhawan playing, he's got a lot of improvement, but at full strength,
Right.
we should be preferring Rohit and KL at the top
Yeah.
because of the
Yeah.
dynamic they brings. And with Virat, our top three is pretty set. Only thing, if we
Yes.
have a good middle order, they can play a
Mm-hmm.
little more freely. They should start playing a little more aggressively, you would say, because there are a lot of similar type of players in KL, Rohit, and Virat who play in a
Right.
similar fashion. Rohit and KL
Yeah.
can take the game to the opposition. You know what they can do at their best.
Yeah.
So KL has sort of dipped in terms of intent. You would say during the last
Yeah.
season as well for Punjab, you'd see him playing that more responsible kind of role. But in the Indian setup, I would like to see KL expressing himself more because we have enough batting
Yeah.
options in the middle order who can absolutely take the game away. And with the kind of
Yeah.
talent we have, there are a lot of people fighting for spots in that middle order of India. So our top order is a
Right.
big strength, but we would like to see
Mm-hmm.
them play more freely. And slowly but surely, our death bowling looks pretty much in good hands as well. Natarajan has come up through the ranks massively.
Yeah.
His death bowling during the
Yeah.
IPL, I think that's the biggest test for anyone, the IPL, because you're up against
Yeah.
them in every alternate day in the toughest situation. So if you do well there, that's a massive
Yes.
confidence. He's done it well. He did well in Australia when he's got chances. And when Bumrah and Natarajan
Mm-hmm.
start playing together, that facet looks very interesting because it's going to be tough for
Yes.
teams to line up these two bowlers. And we have a lot of variety coming in with Natarajan's left arm options as well. And if
Yeah.
I have to point out a weakness, I think in terms of selection, we have a lot of weakness because we start picking players,
Yeah.
a lot of them in the similar dimension. As I told you before, we had
Right.
Shreyas Iyer and Manish Pandey playing in the middle order.
Mm-hmm.
They are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
similar type of players. If you put Shreyas
Yeah.
Iyer and Manish Pandey along with Kohli and Rohit and Rahul, that's a lot of similar type of players. You don't get that X factor who could take the game away from the
Mm-hmm.
opposition. Yes, these are good players, but
Yeah.
are they India's best T20 options? I wouldn't say so.
Right.
Now that Pant has come back to the mix, changes things massively. You get a
Yes.
left-hand option in the middle order. You get a lot of wrist spinners, which teams prefer during the middle order. So a left-hand option improves the chances to take them on massively. And Pant, the
Yeah.
kind of confidence he has in his game right now, he could be a
Mm-hmm.
real match winner for us. I think that's where I think our strength is. If we get our middle order right, that could be a real bonus for us.
Do you think Surya Kumar Yadav will have a place in the 11?
Yeah, I would think so. I would want him to start ahead of Shreyas Iyer at number 5 for the moment because
Okay.
I'd like to see Pant bat at number 4.
Mm-hmm.
So if Sky is playing, he should bat at 5. And I don't see
Right.
Shreyas Iyer playing in that case because Sky is someone who's knocked the door hard. He's given those
Yeah.
performances consistently, and
Yeah.
he's someone the people have really
I
looked
think
up
it's
to.
about time.
Yeah, it's about
Yeah.
time. Sky has given a chance. He's waited massively. You know how much it means to him because
Yeah.
he's been constant in telling that out. He wants to be playing. So, and he's a very good player because his
Yeah.
range at the deck to the areas which he can explore in the ground is very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure Shreyas Iyer quite has that range against space to explore different sides of the park.
Right.
So Sky is a very interesting prospect. I see him playing at least a couple of games in this series. If I'm not quite sure if Shreyas Iyer starts because that's been
Mm-hmm.
what this team has done in the past, but I definitely see Sky getting some games in the series.
Yeah, hopefully, because I'm also looking forward to Sky playing in the team. So yeah, that's about India. So let's come to England, right? So they are probably the strongest white ball team, especially batting wise. I think they're the strongest on paper, but I personally feel that their bowling is not up to the mark, as effective as their batting. So what, according to you, are England's strengths and weaknesses? Like strength, yeah, definitely batting, but where do you think they lack?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think their bowling has some holes to fill. Very clear.
Yeah,
It's very obvious. I think their death bowling, if Jordan starts, Jordan is one of the best options at the death. His numbers at the death are pretty impressive.
right.
And Jofra Archer is world class in this format of the game,
Hmm.
especially. He can really be a key asset. And Jofra and
Yeah.
Jordan, I like to see them bowling in the death more because they
Hmm.
are their best options. With the new ball, they have
Yes.
Sam Curran. I think
Right.
he should start playing. I'm not quite sure where
Hmm.
they rank him because you're looking for new ball wickets in the power play in a
Yes.
T20 game, because if you get that, you
Yes.
really put the opposition on the back foot. There's a very famous
Yeah.
stat that revolves: if you get 3 or more wickets in the power play, you win 75% or 80% of the
Yes.
games or something like that. So
Yeah.
the power play wickets is a massive thing, and Moeen Ali is one player in that middle overs you want
Right.
alongside. And Moeen is a fantastic spin hitter to have in your top four, top five. And but this England side in the batting is filled with options. There are a lot of they're spoiled for choices, you could say. So that becomes a problem in choosing your best 11. Similar with India, it's hard to get their best 11 on park. They have that
Right.
problem as well, problem of plenty, as you would say, but it's not a bad problem to have by any stretch of
Yeah.
imagination. It's something you look
Yeah.
forward to as a captain every day, getting up
Yes.
and looking at having a lot of options fighting for spots in the table. So if England get their act right, they are one of the best sides in the world, no doubt about that. And the
Yeah.
way they play, the brand of cricket they play makes it even more
Hmm.
exciting. And if you want to watch England games, because they give great quality of cricket, especially in this
Yeah.
format of the game, you'd pay to watch any England game because that's the brand of cricket they've started to play under Ian Morgan. And his
Yeah.
role has been massive with this side. So
Absolutely.
England, if they fill their bowling was, I think Tom Curran is someone teams could exploit. So that kind of options. So they have to start looking at ways to minimizing the options which teams could counterattack
Right.
to. Someone
Hmm.
like some clever teams will wait for their options. They'll wait for their
Yeah.
targets and they would absolutely get on top of them. So England have to make sure they get their act right in terms of bowling, and their batting has a lot of bases covered.
Right. I'm glad you spoke about Chris Jordan, highly regarded as one of the best death bowlers, right? So I actually looked into the numbers, and actually the numbers don't quite match up with his reputation, right? Especially in T20 international cricket. So since the last T20 World Cup, the average in the death overs has been around 9.11 per over. So, and Jordan's economy has been way beyond that. It's close to 9.5. And percentage of balls he tries to bowl a York, it's actually high on the 35%, right? But the actual number of Yorkers he lands are just 9%, right? So when he actually lands the Yorkers, his economy rate is 5.11, which is fabulous. But
Mhm.
more often than not, his half volleys and full tosses, so especially half volleys, are 34% and full tosses are 17%. So either side of the Yorker, he's disappearing. His economy rates are high up to 10 and 11, right? So I personally feel, yes, he's a great death bowler, but I think he has not been consistent enough, I would say. Especially in the recent times, as the numbers suggest, till since the last World Cup. If these are the kind of numbers that Jordan is going to produce in the future, then I think that would be a problem for England going forward, right?
Yeah, I would say because they don't have a lot of options for that death bowling.
Yeah,
You look
exactly.
at Tom Curran, yeah, that's where the problem lies for them. So you got to back your best picks. I'm not quite sure what are the alternatives they have, because you look at Tom
Yeah,
Curran, he also has the similar problems you would think in terms of
yeah,
consistency and all that. Mark Wood,
yeah. He
he
was
can be
belted
an
in the South African series.
yeah, and even a Mark
Yeah.
Wood, he can be here and there at times.
Hmm.
He bowls at good pace.
Yeah.
I rate Mark Wood pretty highly, but I think
Yeah.
he can be either way of the coin. Once he gets his act
Yeah.
right, he's a good hit the deck bowler. He has good pace and
Yes.
skills to perform, but it's all
Yeah.
down to consistency. And now Jordan has seen a lot of cricket. He's played in a lot of
Yeah.
leagues. You would
Yes.
start want to back him because I don't see better
Yes.
options than him. That's the problem with the England side
Right.
in
Yeah.
terms of that bowling. You have someone like Reece
Yeah.
Topley or Sakib Mahmood. I think I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure
Yeah. Sakib Mahmood.
where they rank him. So I think Jordan stays for now. But if they have better
Yes.
options, they could consider, because I don't see anyone who could fight for the Jordan spot as of now who are ready yet.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'd agree with that, because if I would Morgan, I would still back Chris Jordan because he is their best option alongside Jofra Archer.
The other issue that England have is the fifth bowler. For a long time, along with Adil Rashid, their second spinner was Moeen Ali. But the recent form of Moeen Ali has been concerning for England. Now with the bat, he's one of the fastest scoring T20 batsmen with the bat, lower down the order. But the fact that his form with the ball has not been very consistent. Ever since 2016 World Cup, he has an economy of almost 9 per over with just 6 wickets in 15 matches. Morgan has understood this. So what has happened is, from being a frontline spinner who bowls almost 3 overs per match, he has come down to being a part-time spinner who's just bowling 1 over per match. You can see the graphic on the screen regarding the number of balls he has been bowling since 2016 World Cup. So the issue with that is the fifth bowler overs are being sneaked in under the radar by the combination of Ben Stokes and Moeen Ali. So rather than having a full strength fifth bowler, they're sneaking in the overs by a combination of Ben Stokes and Moeen Ali, considering whoever is bowling well on that day. So what do you do if you're Eoin Morgan? Do you pick a genuine bowler who can bat, someone like Sam Curran and Tom Curran, something they tried in the South African series but didn't work out? Or what do they do? Do they stick with Moeen Ali?
With Moeen, he's at a hot and cold in terms of his bowling.
Yeah.
Even in terms of his batting, he's not as consistent as you would like him to be at the stage of his career, because he's played a lot of cricket. You'd want more out of Moeen every time he goes out to play. So that is a very interesting debate. And Stokes has also been found wanting in this format. He's not had a lot of great days, and even his batting position has come under a lot of scrutiny, because Stokes in the middle order does not give that same sort of confidence as you would like to see him if he plays in the top of the order. If he's opening, he's a different weapon in itself. You saw Rajasthan use it to good extent. You saw a lot of teams do it with Stokes, because in the middle order, he can take some time to get started, and that doesn't quite match with this England side's brand of cricket they play. They like to play aggressively. They get going from the word go. They have a lot of players who start doing that. So their bowling options become a little weak. So I'd like to see Moeen, simply because he gives the left-hander option. I know they have David Malan, who's been very consistent, but I still think there are a lot of challenges awaiting David Malan. It's not going to be very straightforward for him. Yes, he's got some very interesting numbers, but I think there is something. If you look deeper, there are some flaws with David Malan's numbers. I think he would not get the same returns in an Indian T20 World Cup. I'm not quite sure with the brand of cricket he plays. How good is his game versus spin? I'm not quite sure, because that is going to be tested massively in Indian conditions. Spin game has to be very good. You're going to face a lot of spinners in those middle overs. So you need good spin hitters. I think in terms of spin hitting, Moeen Ali is right up there. His numbers as a spin is very good. He is a left-handed option, so he can take on the wrist spinners as well. We all know what he did to Kuldeep in Eden Gardens. So that's the kind of things he could do on his day. But you would want more consistency ideally. But in terms of spin hitting, I would still have Moeen in the lineup. Just because it's an Indian T20 World Cup, the conditions matter a lot. So in that case, if the pitches are starting to do some favor, you saw in the 2016 T20 World Cup, there were pitches that were assisting spin massively. India lost to New Zealand in the first game on a proper ranked turner. We were outbowled by New Zealand spinners, as simple as that. So that way, if the pitches have something in it, Moeen plays a lot of cricket back in England where the pitches are very not conducive to spin bowling. They have a lot of flat tracks. England play cricket because they pack their batting and they play to that strength. But in an Indian World Cup, I think Moeen could be of very high value because of his spin bowling, because he would get some purchase, I'm sure. And he's at that stage as of his career, you would want him to, you start expecting someone like a Moeen to deliver more consistently. So I think he has a lot of value in an Indian T20 World Cup.
Agreed, because the best spin players for England, all of them are on top of the order. You have Joss Butler, Johnny Bairstow, Morgan. So you would want, I definitely agree with your point that you would want someone to play spin better even down the order, because some teams like India, they toss the ball to Chahal even in the death overs. So you would want someone to peel off with that. And interesting point you made about David Malan, that we've seen him play well and he's done very well against the pace, but his facet of game against the spin has not been really tested, right? So I looked into the numbers. His numbers against pace have been phenomenal. I mean, he averages 117 against pace, right?
His
And
numbers in
against
T20 are a joke in itself. I think he averages
yeah,
very.
yeah. And in the same T20s, his numbers against spin, he averages somewhere around 34. So that's a massive gulf. So we're yet to see how he plays in the IPL and then this series. So I think that'll be a good contest for the world number one T20 batsman, right?
Yeah, I think it in the couple of months. I'm not quite sure whether he starts for Punjab Kings this year. I'm not
Yeah.
quite sure whether he gets into that 4 overseas players list straight away. But I think over the course of the next 2-3 months, you'd get a fair sort of idea where he ranks as spin. He didn't have the greatest of time in the Big Bash League. I think he didn't have great returns. And his spin game has not been tested. And even if you're bowling spin in sort of conditions like England, you are not going to get tested as much as you would get in India. I'm not saying India have a lot of rank turners for a T20 World Cup. I'm not coming to that point. But I see some venues that massively have spin as a big threat during that middle over. So that's
like
when you want your best players of spin to be there.
So what would your playing 11 be for the first first T20 match for India and England both?
I'd say from an Indian point of view, I'd give 11 more so.
Sure.
I think Rohit and KL start. I'd like to. I know Shikhar Dhawan has gone up in terms of intent from the 2018 IPL. Returns have been very good. I know that, but I see these two as a bigger threat to have. At the top of the order, and of course Virat at 3. Then I would like to see Rishabh at 4. The series. Rishabh Pant at 4. Then Surya Kumar, as we mentioned, at 5. Hardik at 6. Then Sundar, or if they play Aksa or the third seaming option, then Bhuvaneshwar, Bhuvaneshwar and Natarajan.
And Chahal.
Chahal, of course.
Yeah. So what are your predictions for the series? So what do you predict?
I think it will be
it's going to be very tough, but
tightly contested series. I'm not quite sure they'd have the edge, but I'd still think India win if they play a good brand of cricket. And we'll miss Bumrah massively against a quality England side. He could be a real threat, but he's out for obvious reasons. So I think India still win the series 3-2 at this moment. I'm not quite sure. We'll come back to it later.
Sure. So my prediction for the series is, it's 3-2, but I feel England will win the series. I personally feel that, even though I don't want them to win the series, being an Indian fan, but I personally feel that this England side is a massive threat. And I as you said, rightly said in the beginning of the video, that this is a perfect, preparation for both the sides. These two are probably the finalists of T20 World Cups for all we know. So I don't think they'll get a better preparation than this. But if India can take the weak link out of England's bowling, then India will win the match. But without our big guns in Shami and Bumrah, I think England will fancy their chances against them. But hey, we'll see. We'll get back to you after the series. Thank you so much, Prashanth. It was so nice talking to you. It was a lot of fun, and really hope to see you in the future again. Hopefully we'll speak up with you and hopefully catch up again with another video.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Right. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.